Mountain View Wisman School District Board of Trustees. Apologies for the delay. We're getting up to speed on a really cool new technological situation up here in our computing capabilities. First, I want to just say Happy New Year. I'm really excited for the new year, and welcome back, trustees, from break. And we're going to start off, we do have a presentation today from Crittenden. So if Crittenden wouldn't mind to start us off with the pledge and come up front, that would be great. So if you could line up in front of the desk here and face that way, since the camera's at the back, that would be great. Everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, Principal Gomez.
Yes. Thank you, Nessie and Arturo, for leading us in the pledge tonight. Good evening. Good evening. We are very thrilled to be here tonight to showcase the great work our students and teachers are doing in our STEM elective program at Crittenden. Our STEM elective program is available in both English and Spanish this year. As you will see, the program focuses on building student capacity in what we call the 4 C's. In addition, we are attempting to help students internalize a process of thinking, thank you, a learning strategy for approaching and solving high-level problems. So the program is led by Charles Fetterman and Sandra Saenz. I would like to now introduce Mr. Fetterman, who teaches our robotics classes.
Good evening, and thank you for having us, and thanks for allowing Crittenden and our students to come and talk about engineering and robotics and STEM at school. So at Crittenden, we emphasize these 4 styles of communication. If you guys take a look at the rubric, the critical thinking, collaboration, creativity. And we've had a lot of articulation with the high schools, and they also feel that this team problem-solving model process is very important, especially for EL learners and also girls or women, so that they can be heard and understood. So what's really important about this model is this is a process important to organize their thoughts and ideas, so that as they're talking about a problem, they can do it with artful, skillful language, but most importantly, they have to provide a solution in a skillful way and hopefully an artistic way that identifies a problem. It's kind of like, if it's not enough, if you have to deliver an elevator pitch, you want to have your ideas organized, and you might have 20 or 30 seconds. You have to do it with articulate language to get your points across. So thank you. I'd like to introduce Ms. Saenz, who will talk more about the engineering process.
Thank you. Hello, good evening. I am Ms. Saenz, and I am the STEM teacher. We have STEM class for the first time at Crittenden in English and in Spanish. And in our class, and also with Mr. Federman in robotics and engineer, we are following the engineering design process, which have 6 steps. And in each one of them, the kids are learning skills for the 4 C's that he spoke before. And I'm going to introduce Darren, one of my wonderful students. He's bilingual. He went to Mistral and came to my class, and I'm so fortunate to have it in my class. And he's going to explain all the steps and how they use it in the classroom. Thank you.
Entonces, yo soy Darren, soy bilingüe. I'm bilingual. And so I'm going to explain the engineering design process. The first step is ask. El primer paso es preguntar, y en preguntar lo que hacemos es, nosotros investigamos sobre el problema, we investigate the problem, and to do that we watch videos, we read articles in Spanish or in English, and in this way we can understand the problem more. Entonces podemos entender el problema por medio de ver videos y leer artículos en español y en inglés. Y esto con este conocimiento podemos ir al segundo paso, que es imaginar. So the next step is imagine, and what we do in imagine is we have researched the problem, and we have ideas for how we can make solutions for this. So what we do is we think about our ideas and we write them down and we draw them in our notebooks. And then we talk among each other. We communicate about what ideas we think would be best. Entonces nosotros comunicamos sobre las ideas que pensamos que pueden ser las mejores. Y cuando tenemos la mejor idea, podemos planear, que es el segundo, que es el tercer paso. So after this, we can plan, which is the third step. And in this, we've selected our favorite idea, and we collaborate to plan, to make a detailed plan with dimensions and how it's going to go, and then we explain it in a paragraph form of like how it's going to work. Entonces lo explicamos y lo dibujamos de cómo lo vamos a hacer. Y podemos crear, que es el cuarto paso, so we can create, that's the fourth step. And in this, we follow the plan and make a model. And this model, sometimes we have to it has to be broken down into smaller pieces. And we collaborate to make this bigger machine. Pero esta máquina, entonces cuando lo hacemos por medio de seguir el plan, a veces no funciona y después tenemos que mejorarlo. We have to improve it. And when we improve, we have a cycle of creating and improving. So we test out the machine, and then we see how we can make it better. We use critical thinking to imagine more ideas about how it can be better. Entonces usamos nuestro pensamiento para hacer ideas de cómo lo podemos mejorar, y después ya estamos en un ciclo de crear y mejorar. Y cuando terminamos este ciclo, a veces no funciona nuestro proyecto. Sometimes the project doesn't work, but once the time is up, to the due date is up, then we communicate what we did in every step, how we investigated, what plans we had, how we created and improved. Entonces, en este comunicar podemos comunicar cómo hicimos nuestro preguntar, cómo investigamos sobre el problema, cuáles ideas teníamos y cómo los planeamos y si funcionó o no. Entonces, we talk about how if it worked or not. And so my experience with STEM, we've had 3 or 4 projects so far. One of them was desalination of ocean water, and I like this project because it forces you to think a lot, and you have to come up with a lot of ideas because often they don't work as well as you think they will. So I would recommend this because it teaches you patience when you have to try over and over to make it work. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it's the process that's the important part. And what we do, I would recommend this class in Spanish because some of my friends from Mistral, they take the Spanish class, but in this, you're learning stuff that's applicable to many areas of life. You're learning science and you're learning math and engineering, which can become future job careers. And so this class also works on your conversation skills, which often can be more important than grammar and where to put the accents when you're speaking Spanish and writing. So I think I would recommend this class.
Hi, my name is Laura, and I've been part of Crittenden Robotics for the past 3 years. I've been part of the after-school team PantherBots. Teamwork is essential in PantherBots. We learn to work together with our teammates to build and program a robot to score maximum points. We also work together as a team to come up with a research project. We find a problem that we all agree on, and we come up with a solution. We compromise and collaborate, communicating with each other to figure out something we all care about. We all work together to come up with the plans for what we are going to accomplish and voting on every idea so everyone gets a say. And together we complete our tasks to make the team successful. In the photo at the top right, that it is our team. We are presenting our solution to the problem we agreed on. We agreed on the problem of improving bike safety because many of us have first or second hand experience of the unsafe conditions for cyclists near Crittenden. Um, we have a photo of our robot. This robot was built together as a team, each of us inputting our own opinions and what we thought would make it better. We have a photo of our planning document that was used every day to use our time efficiently and work together so everyone would know what they're supposed to complete. Thank you. I would like to introduce Greg. Right?
Hello. Okay. Hello, my name is Gregory, and I would like to share my experiences with the digital design tools such as SketchUp, easel, and 3D printing. 3D design tools allow us to transform ideas from minds to reality. We can design and model our ideas and share our vision with others. Our ideas are further enhanced through by 3D printing or milling or laser cutting ideas to bring them into reality. One project we did I really liked was using the carving mill to create an artistic design on the tile using a program called the Easel by Inventables. In addition to designing the tile, we had to learn about cut speeds, drill bit sizes, and depth in cuts. We were limited to about 20 minutes of cut time. And here are some of the examples. It's hard to see. And here is another. I did it on Halloween. And if any of you have any questions, you can ask. No? Okay. And here is Isaac.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Isaac, and through building rockets, we learned about the parts of a rocket and their function as well as aerodynamics needed for controlled flight. We use skills from math to help us plan and construct our rocket, and here's a video I made. Any questions? Next, we have Sid talking about knowledge through engineering products.
Hi, my name is Sid Kunda. In robotics and engineering, we built a bridge out of stir sticks and wood glue. Can you play the first video, please?
Hey guys, it's your boy Sid and Isaac back for another epic YouTube video. This time we built a bridge and let's see how it does. We think that our bridge will fail due to tension on the bottom. We think that it will just cave out and that's how it will fail.
Under tension on the bottom, okay. All right, let's go ahead and load up.
So after this, we filled a bucket of sand underneath that was tied to the rope to the bridge, and then we weighed it with sand, and I believe the bridge held 30 pounds. So the next video. And our prediction was correct. So the bottom caved out. So we learned about tension and compression, and we used online tools and simulations. So the last video is a example of a simulation that we did.
And the red is compression and the blue is tension. So we could see what was failing and what was working. And based on that, we could build our bridge and test it. And that's all. Next, I'd like to introduce Yash Chinani, who will be working on robots.
Hi, I'm Yash and I'm here to talk about robotics. Can you please play the bottom video? The bottom one. So, in robotics, consistency is very important in the robot, and the best way to do that is to use sensors. At first, we weren't using sensors, and our missions weren't consistent. Then, the mentor suggested that we use sensors, and that made them a lot more consistent. For example, we used a gyro sensor, which allowed us to make turns the same each time by measuring the degrees. And our programs were consistent enough that we qualified for the regional tournament. Next video, please. And this is the same mission improved at the regional tournament. So it flips over the elevator, knocks out beams, and releases the swing. Now back to Mr. Fetterman to wrap up the presentation. Thank you.
So in closing, I'd like to say like this, the skills that my students are learning, they're STEM skills, but really they're life skills. If they can master the arts of communication, time management, conflict resolution, agreements, politely disagree and agree on the problem solving process, those are the skills that we're hoping to impart on our students as they continue on to high school and college and in life in general. So thank you very much for allowing us to come, and thank you to the students for being willing to come and share their thoughts and ideas. I know that we're limited time, and so I want to thank you for allowing us to go over a little bit. But if you guys have any questions, I know that we'd be happy to answer them for you. Okay. And
Thank you very much, Mr. Fetterman and Ms. Lyons and all the students. That was wonderful. Thank you. Okay, I think now we'll move on to our roll call for the board meeting.
Helen Wheeler.
Jose Gutierrez Jr.
Devin Conley.
And Tamara Wilson. Let the record reflect that all 5 trustees are present. And now we move on to approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, on a motion moved by trustee Wheeler and seconded by trustee Conley, the approval of the agenda passes unanimously. We've gone through, and now is item 3, opportunity for members of the public to address the board concerning items on the closed session agenda. Seeing as there are no members of the public here to address us at this time, at 6:24, we'll move on to closed session. Thank you. A little trick. Okay, let's see the time. 7:13. All right, at 7:17, we will reconvene the meeting of the Mountain View Wisman School District Board of Trustees. I'd like to report that the board voted unanimously to uphold an inter-district transfer denial in closed session. We will move on now to the consent agenda. Can I get approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, on a motion moved by trustee Wheeler and seconded by trustee Blakely, the consent agenda passes unanimously. We'll move on now to item 7, communications and employee organizations. Are there any members of employee organizations that would like to address the board at this time? Okay, seeing as there are none, district committees?
I have one from district committees from
Okay.
ELAC.
Yeah.
Over the break, I had some parents ask me if the district would be kind enough to be able, and Ms. Smith, we'll need your help with this too, along with Dr. Rudolph, to announce the cafecitos that they'll have with the community, also through DLAC, so they can spread the words out to the local ELACs and then gain more participation. Because I think the last time there weren't that many, so.
Okay, that's
That's
a great
it.
idea. Thank you,
Thank-
trustee
thank you.
Gutierrez.
I gotta shut this down.
Should we pause?
Did I say something wrong? Or?
No. One moment. Awesome.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Sorry.
You guys have any homework? Are you done?
His dad voice on.
Yeah. He's live.
I'm a single dad. I'm just like, let's do this. Come on. Let's get the work done. Well, we're glad you're here.
Sorry. Give me 1 second.
So we have a completely new computer and display system we're getting used to tonight. So you're our first test. Thanks for your patience.
So Dr. Rudolph is both our superintendent and our IT guy tonight.
I think we're almost back.
We're
Online
Let's
or
experiment
live.
this one.
Okay. So
I'll figure this one out. But I
Okay.
think we are,
How about the one behind us?
the problem is it's your communication updates next. We're really going to test your multitasking capabilities.
He's going to start off with the communication, with the tech update.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, hey.
sorry. They told us how to do this earlier today. There we go. Okay. On. And that one's off. Now
There we go. Oh, no, that was on.
it's coming. Okay.
Right on.
Good.
One last thing. Of course. All right, we're good.
Okay. All right, now we will move on then to communications from the superintendent.
Perfect. All right. No update.
Oh my God.
Okay. Okay, well then now we will move on to item 8, community comments. This is the time reserved for community members to address the board. Pardon me, on items that are not on the agenda. The board and administration welcome this opportunity to listen. However, in compliance with the Brown Act, the board is not permitted to take action on non-agenda items. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board at this time? Okay, seeing as there are none, we'll move on to item A, 9A, board policy number 5132, dress code policy. Dr. Rudolph?
All right, just want to talk about this real quick. I'm not going to go through the presentation because really the process that we developed in the board retreat was that we would develop a policy committee. The policy committee would look over a particular item, but this is the only time that the 5 of you actually can provide the policy committee with some feedback. And so just to take everybody through, staff went through, took the feedback that was given at the last meeting, worked on creating a draft policy, which has then been sent on to the policy committee. The policy committee has made some edits to it, but they need to get some feedback from everybody in terms of what to do. We did send out a survey, which results we've given to you so that you can see what the community is sort of thinking about. One of the big things I think that needs to be taken into account is at least, I believe it was headgear was something that was sort of brought up as a comment, making sure that we exempt headgear for religious purposes, which we would anyway, but we need to make sure that that's specifically outlined. The thing I do want to say about this is 2 things because of this amount of time we have in order to implement this. First one is you need to understand that the site safety plans are due on March 1st. So we're really up against a very tight timeline. The second thing is that the board policy is not the actual dress code that's going to be enforced. The board policy is actually the overarching 30,000 view, which would be broad enough that it gives you the flexibility to adjust the dress code from year to year based off of what the fashion trends are. And so just keep that in mind because the next thing that's going to occur right after this is we will start the administrative regulations, and we've committed to drawing up 2 different dress codes. The first one is we'll have an elementary dress code, and then we'll have a middle school dress code. And so that one can dive a little bit more specifically into what's allowed, what's not allowed. And then those are the items that will get approved as a part of the safety plan. And it also will bring that back, even though you don't vote on an administrative regulation, we'll bring the AR back to show this is how we plan on implementing it. And we'll have to do it at the first meeting in March, just so that everybody's aware of it. The last thing I would say is that the purpose here today is for you, the 5 of you, to have a dialogue to discuss the policy and sort of what adjustments you want to make. And I know Trustee Blakey and I talked about this a little bit earlier because she had a concern about, I believe it's the jerseys. And so jerseys oftentimes are affiliated with particular games. And so like we had a unique conversation about that. However, in light of what I just said, I think the strategy here is to make it broad enough that schools can interpret, can work with law enforcement to talk about what are the items that should be banned and what are the items that should not be banned based off of current trends for gang paraphernalia. And then allow the dress code to be the item that evolves and readjust for times as opposed to the policy. And I think that's sort of the intent of the policy committee as well as the board's policy as opposed to what's occurring on the ground from a day-to-day process. So that's the sort of the process and the feedback I have. The feedback that you give to the members who are working on the policy, they'll work on a draft like they've been doing. They'll send it back to us. Once they bring it back to us, we'll bring it to the next meeting for final approval. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Rudolph. We'll start with board questions and then move on to the community comments. I would just like to start, just a clarifying question. It sounds like are responsible in this policy to create an umbrella under which 2 different administrative regulations or what are termed dress codes will be developed. Is that correct?
Right. I mean, it'll be a part of all the same administrative regulation, but it will have two different dress codes within it.
But the administrative regulations will have some of the level of detail and specificity that we
Yes.
might have seen in some of the parent feedback and in some
Yes.
of the emails we've been
Yeah.
receiving. That would be the place where that
Right.
feedback would be handled,
Right.
and that would be at a middle school level and at an elementary level.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify
The
that.
big piece of, at least what I walked away with in my notes, is to make sure that the policy really reiterated, and this is based off of Alameda, this is based off San Jose, this is based off of Oregon now, that that there is a sentiment amongst the board that how students dress is primarily responsibility of the parent, but there are things, tenets, social mores that we should take into consideration as we do dress codes, and that is what the sort of the updated draft looks like or tries to capture.
And are the site safety plans that need to be approved in by March 1st, those do involve input from parents and the school site councils, is that correct?
Yes, and every principal is aware that they need to make sure that they address
Okay,
this with the public. Only one school did that last year.
perfect, thank you.
This updated one that said student dress code that was emailed to us Monday or Tuesday, is that the policy or is that a sample regulation? Like,
The one that was emailed to you and put on the website is actually we took the comments that the two of you posted, and then we adjusted it, and then that's the updated version.
but I'm just confused whether that's the board
That's a policy.
Okay.
Yes, that's a policy. Mhm. We have not started working on the administrative regulation or the actual dress code.
It's just that it said dress code, which,
Yeah.
okay, I appreciate the clarification.
Trustee Wheeler?
Yeah, and I don't know if this question is appropriate for this meeting or for the next meeting, but I think it's clear that we want a more flexible dress code and a more respectful dress code. But at some point, somebody is going to have the ability to enforce whatever rule is put in place and whatever students wear to school. So who would be that enforcer?
That's where it boils down to the principals and the teachers.
And so I'm assuming this means that the principals and the teachers would have instruction about this and conversations about this so that it would seem more uniform.
So, excuse me. So essentially, what will happen is after it's approved in the site safety plans, and we'll bring back the AR. You essentially have from March until the end of the year to sort of communicate it out and get everybody on the same page. And then, as part of our professional development at the start of the year, the principals will talk about how do we enforce a dress code and what does that look like. And that's a disciplined conversation that they would have, similar to what I would have at the beginning of every single year. Here are the things. These are the major violations we're going to focus on. These are minor violations. Here are the things that we're going to work through and coach kids on.
I have a question. So similar to some of the discussion we had around the way short length is evaluated, for example, the use of sort of chest as a boundary or guideline that the chest has to be covered. I have a question about like how that is enforced. Does that mean that, again, we're going to have an adult closely examining a child's body to evaluate whether or not too much of their chest is exposed, or how
I mean,
does that work?
So there's a couple ways that we can do it. A, you can remove it as a board if you feel like you're uncomfortable with it. The second thing is that we try to come up with a uniform definition in the AR and try and define it. I know when Mrs. Hausman and Mrs. Logan were pulling it together, one of the things that they looked at which is why they came up with that diagram, trying to find a way to sort of identify what that area looks like so that everybody was sort of clear about that. So that's another way that you could approach it. I mean, I don't know if there's any specific way of designating dress or chest.
I know, I think that Oregon Now, it's going to be either Oregon Now or Alameda talked about, and some people might not be comfortable with this language, talked about covering genitalia and nipples. That might be something that not everyone's comfortable with, but that was the format that was gone with. It's for the board to discuss.
Yeah, I would probably say I think, and I'm not on the board, so, I would just simply say I would probably fall on the more conservative side. And I have daughters and I have a son, but I would fall on the more conservative side of what I believe is appropriate for dress and what's not. And I understand that it's all about context and where you grew up and when you grew up and all those other things. And so I get that, but I know what I would want for my daughters and what, as a parent, and maybe that's part of it. So as a parent, what I would send my daughters to school, or what I sent my daughters to school with, maybe a little bit different. And so I would just simply caution the board to, and again, you can adjust the language whichever way you want. Just try not to pin yourselves into a box. Because at some point, you want this policy to be able to stand the test of time for some years. You don't want to have to keep coming back to it every single year. What you want to be flexible, and I think it talks about this with the gang paraphernalia. It says that it's ever evolving. So in one year, I'll use the bloods. Bloods wear red, and then they will turn to brown. And then they have used, if they were Pyru bloods, they would use gray, right? And then they've used white. If they're going to war, they will use black. And so there's no way that you can keep up with the ever evolving approach. And so that's one of the reasons why it says in there, because gang paraphernalia is changing and evolving so much, you want to have it flexible enough. And I think the same thing would be true for midriffs and tank tops and everything else. Things go in and out of fashion. And so you just want it to be, you want the policy to be flexible enough to meet whatever the needs you see fit.
Other questions from board members? Okay, we'll move on to community comment. I've got 8 cards here, so we'll do 1 minute each. If you could line up at the podium in this order, please. We'll start with Hayes Dwinell, Hazel Oxford, not here. Yeah, so if you want to line up behind the podium, and then Sophia Rohrs, it looks like Marley Bankston, Adriana Eaton, Lucille Rohrs, thank you, Brian Eaton, and Jasmine Telecki, please. We'll have 1 minute each. And please state your name when you begin your talk. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Hayes Duno, and I'd just like to say that this is a policy that I feel very strongly about. I remember last year in 8th grade going to talk to Miss Gomez about it and bringing it up with her, and just some concerns that I had with the current dress code, and I'm really glad how far it's come, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hazel Oxford, and I just wanted to share something that happened at school. One of my friends, Amber, she wore a crop top to school, and because it was a recurring problem with her teacher, she brought it back up, and she had to change out of it. And then we had our friend Perrin change into the crop top to see if he would get dress coded in it. And he walked past the teacher a few times, and we know that they saw it, but they didn't say anything about it or do anything. And it was a little irritating to us to see that they weren't, I don't know the word, comfortable or equal about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Hazel.
Hi, I'm Sophia Royce, a 7th grader at Crittenden, and I would just like to say that I'm very glad that you guys are working on this topic, and it makes me feel better knowing that you are striving to make changes in it. But I would like to bring up the midriff. And so after talking to some of my friends and some of their parents, I feel like that it's a bit subjective, and we don't know what exactly does it mean, because in musical theater, we're doing stretches, dances, so
sometimes like your shirt's gonna like come up, but like, is it half an inch? Is it 1 inch? Is it 2 inches? Like it's not very clear. And so I feel like if we could find like a better way to go about this, it would be great. Okay, I'm done now.
Thank you. Can you ask questions during? Sure. I just was wondering if you had any suggestions for what a better way is.
I don't exactly, because like of everyone, I feel like we all have different opinions, so maybe it would be a good idea to get like a bunch of people and see what they could come up with.
Thank you.
Hi. Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Marley Bankson, and I was here last time, and I just want to say thank you so much for assessing this issue because it really means a lot to everybody who's here for the dress code. And I'm also going to bring up something that Sophia said about the midriff, and I'm going to add to what she said that shirts fall differently on different girls. The same thing with shorts, like the shorts and stuff like that. So I think if we had a rule that said like it cannot be like a bra, like you cannot wear just a bra, like it has to be something covering it. And I think that would be more appropriate for like the midriff thing. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Marley.
My name is Adriana Eden, and another thing about the midriff, I forgot what it was. I think that it's unfair if you raise your hand and your shirt comes up and then you're dress coded. You were trying to participate in class and then you're missing class time, and that it should say that it shouldn't be prohibiting you from wearing a crop top because it's okay to show your stomach, and normally it's okay to walk around wearing a crop top outside of school, so you should be able to wear something that would be publicly acceptable other places. But thanks for assessing the issue.
Thank you, Adriana. Have you witnessed that occurring where a child raised their hand and was dress coded?
No.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm
sorry?
Lucille Royce.
You have?
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. It's okay. I'm Lucille Royce. You probably remember me. I don't know. I would like to also raise the issue about the midriff. It feels like, to me, it feels like the only special piece about this band of skin is that it's between the two private parts. And, sorry, I did not prepare. The fact that we're policing this area of skin, it's saying to kids, and it's saying to me that this is like that you're not allowed to show this piece of skin, and that if you do this, you're uncultured and you don't know what you're doing. And yeah, it says to me that yeah. I'm sorry. It says to me that you're like uncultured and that you don't, and so it's also more subjective to girl. Okay.
You can email us your comments if you'd like to have time to formulate them. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brian. I wanted to thank the board and staff for addressing this so quickly. I realize it was under a lot of time pressure and public pressure too. I think the new dress code is fantastically better than the old one. I'm strongly supportive. I hope it's passed soon and goes into effect soon. That said, as a parent, the notion of how the rules about chests and midriffs would be enforced makes me pretty uncomfortable. I've been trying to think through an enforcement scenario that wouldn't make me cringe, and I can't find one. And so I do hope that there is a change there. That said, if we can't get consensus on improving that, I'd be supportive of passing the current draft as well, just so long as we can get an improvement soon, because it is much better than status quo. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Eaton. Ms. Talecki?
Everything Brian said, I won't repeat it. Total agreement. Thank you so much. It is a huge improvement. We don't want to do anything to compromise getting that enacted as early as next year. So thank you. But I think one way, even though you asked the student, I would propose addressing the where's the limit question about midriffs and chests is to call out specifically what must be covered. And words like nipples and genitalia make us all squirm. Like, I don't like it either. But I think if we say that's exactly what has to be covered with opaque fabric, we get completely out of the game of, was that 2 inches? Was it 1 inch? Is that half an inch? Is it okay? Well, she raised her hand. She didn't mean it. She meant it. She didn't. That's what we want to get away from. So saying what has to be covered, and I think most students just want to be comfortable at school. Some will push limits, of course, but at the end of the day, it's in the parents' hands. What are the kids bought and what are they allowed to wear to school? Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional comments from the board?
So I want to thank all of you for having shown up, okay? Now, all you are girls, right, for the most part, right here in the front row. I have 2 daughters, right? I have a freshman and I have a 6th grader. I'm going to give you some friendly advice, and if you get mad at me, go for it, right? But when you speak in public, never apologize. You express yourselves the best you can. You share those ideas. Do not say, I'm sorry. All right. And if you can't come up with a thought or you get nervous, it happens to everybody. So don't say sorry. You just keep going forward and go. So thank you for coming. And I just want you to know that you can still participate in the process. I'd get active on this and I get other kids to find out what they think about the issues you guys have brought up, right? And share that with the principal and with your student government and just go with it. Okay. Thank you.
Trustee Conley?
I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. Thank you and for your input. And I'd like to thank the trustees for taking this on and considering it quickly.
Well, I'd like to thank you all too. I've been behind that podium and had my kneecaps. They shake up and down when I get really nervous. So I understand it's really brave of you to do that. And I hope you see that citizens can affect change in their communities and at all levels. And you're starting that journey, and you'll hopefully continue that into adulthood. So thank you for that. One comment I want to make when I was thinking about this is, I think no matter what the ultimate, outside of the board policy, no matter what the administrative regulation and or dress codes become, there inherently are, you have to, I don't like this word police bodies, but whatever it turns out being, people have to examine both genders of children at schools to see if they're conforming to whatever that final AR is. So I don't think there's any clear way around that. I do like that we have the diagram there. I think it pretty clearly visually shows what needs to be covered. So I am happy with the policy as it is, and I think getting into the specificity of different items that some people have brought up is up to the sites. So that's where I stand with that. I don't know if the committee needs more input from us, so that would be Trustee Blakely and Trustee Conley.
I appreciate input. I mean, we've been talking about midriffs today. I was looking through, and we just had there's the diagram, but it doesn't say anything about midriffs. Or at least when I quickly did a search on the word midriff, I didn't see anything.
Torso.
Oh, torso. No wonder when I searched. Okay. I'd be curious to see, to get my fellow trustees' perspectives about torso.
I like that term. I think it's non-gender specific. I think midriff, I don't think I've ever seen that used in the context of boys before. Maybe I'm too old, I don't know. But torso seems to be a very general medical type of a term. I don't think we should have exposed midriffs. I don't also think kids raising their hands. I think that's ridiculous, and I doubt it's happening, but I mean, the fear of anything possible happening is not something that we can effectively change in a policy.
So torso.
Well, yeah, so I'm reading, okay, clothing must cover the chest and lower torso at all times, see diagram. And that's where it's kind of like from here to, where your shorts would be.
And is an issue that you're trying to get feedback as to what we think about the word torso? Or just the
or what you think about that concept that it has to be covered, because I mean it's one thing to wear like a one-piece thing, so it's clearly but if you wore a top that kind of meets the top of your pants or skirt and there's like a little bit of skin in there, is that does that cover your torso? I mean, when you're standing still, it does, but if you move around, I don't know. I mean, this just takes me so back to 7th grade. And, my mom saying, no daughter of mine is going to go to school like that. And the minute I walked out, I'd unbutton my blouse and tie it up. So I remember. But I don't know. I mean, I think things can get carried away and go too far. And I think that the clothing perhaps sometimes isn't comfortable. Like if you're running around, like if you have a tube top and it's going to fall down, that's not really so cool. So I'm just looking for guidance.
Trustee Wheeler?
Yeah, I think a lot of this can and should be addressed in the training that you propose, that the principals and do with their staffs. I don't think, from the conversation up here, I don't think we want to be midriff police. So I think if that message gets clearly stated to the principals and to the teachers on campus that, let's use common sense about this and not try to punish or shame somebody. That's where I see it happening in that kind of professional development.
I would just say I think staff's attempt was, when looking at these policies, is try to delineate between someone saying a sports bra or a bra is a piece of fashion versus a shirt, right? And so that's it happens, that is part of fashion now. And so, I think the board, just if you're fine with leaving it lower torso, then I think we can be fine with taking it back and saying, there may be other fish to fry than focusing on a belly button.
Okay.
Does that give clear enough direction?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And just one comment, because I had been focusing on the professional sportswear. But as I read this more carefully, it's only professional sportswear identified by the sheriff as being gang related. So I'm more comfortable with that now. I think I had read the clause a little bit differently to be that or on its own without sheriff identification or police department identification as gang affiliated.
I also think there's an opportunity here. So when Alameda enacted their policy, which is one of the more progressive policies that I've seen, they put their policy in. Their first year was a trial, and they're currently in that trial right now. I'm excited to enact this policy, but I also think that once we see how it goes, and if we get feedback from principals and teachers or families along the way, if we need to modify this, we could.
I mean, it can also be modified at the AR level, so the actual code as
it
it
could
goes
be.
through. That's why I think it behooves us to create this really broad umbrella from which the sites who know their own communities and kids can make those kinds of adjustments and have it evolve over time. So I agree.
Yeah, and community participation, because they will get feedback one way or another.
Right.
The local school sites or parents in general, because they do voice their opinions, plus also students. The students will let them know too.
And they have to approve these plans yearly,
Right.
annually, so.
So there's oversight there.
Trustee Wheeler?
And I think it's also important to keep in mind that these should be enforced even-handedly. So it doesn't matter who the child is, it doesn't matter who the teacher is, it doesn't matter who the parent is, it doesn't matter whether it's a boy or a girl or a trans child, that it's enforced evenly across the board.
Okay, thank you. I think the committee has enough input to go on this. So we'll move on now to item B, Board Goal 2, update on progress. Dr. Rudolph, Ms. Vickyard.
You guys should do your homework.
Yeah.
And this will come back. This will come back for a vote.
Thank you. And thank you for the nice sign, too.
All right, good evening. Tara Jordan here to share with you our iReady diagnostic growth for Board Goal 2. This presentation aligns to our strategic plan goals 1 and 2, preparing students for high school and beyond, as well as Board Goal 2, ensuring that all students make at least 1 year's growth within each school year. I just want to do a really quick refresh of iReady. It is the online program that helps us understand our students' strengths and also their areas for need, helps teachers to plan instruction, and helps students to fill gaps and achieve along their own progress. Thanks. So iReady has two parts. We have the iReady Diagnostic, which is a computer adaptive assessment tied to standards. We give this 3 times a year. We've completed Diagnostic 1 and 2 at this point now. And it really helps teachers to identify student needs and plan their instruction. The other piece is the iReady Instruction Program that, if you'll remember, we purchased for all students in our district back in October. The instruction component really allows students to have a tool that is really designed for their learning needs that they can use to continually improve in their progress. Helps children who are behind to catch up and fill in gaps, helps children who are on target and above to continue to learn and grow. This is something that is used, can be used by all children at home. It is also something that is highly used within our RTI and core classrooms within the district. So I would like to take you through some of our diagnostic results. You may remember from Diagnostic 1, the charts that look like this. Tier 1, I want to remind you, is on grade level or above. This is where we want our children to be. And so you'll see that we have 61% of our students at Tier 1 in reading. Tier 2 means you're approaching grade level. Almost there, you might be 1 year behind. Tier 3 are most at-risk students who are 2 or more years behind grade level. And if you see going from grade level to grade level, from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade, we're fairly consistent in Tier 1. We've got a nice number of students at every grade level who are meeting grade level standards or achieving above grade level, with the highest percentage of students at Tier 1 in grade 3. Where we see the biggest change is in Tier 3. When our students struggle, they continue to struggle more and more unless we catch them early, which is why we really want to fill in those gaps early and often. School performance, you can see all of the schools within our district. There's, as always, great variability within our schools and the performance of our students. But now I'd like to talk about change from Diagnostic 1 to 2. So really, Tier 1 is where we want all of our students to be, at or above grade level. And what we're always looking for is more children in Tier 1. And so the beauty of this chart shows us that at every school within our district, we have more and more children entering into that Tier 1 group. They're meeting and exceeding standards in reading. And I'm going to skip Tier 2 for a moment and go to Tier 3. We want at all times to reduce the number of students we have in Tier 3. We need fewer and fewer children to be at that most significant challenge level. Our struggling students, we need to be reduced. And so you can also see every one of our schools in the district has reduced the number of children who are in that Tier 3, meaning 2 or more years below. And I'll come back to Tier 2. So Tier 2 is that funny middle of the road. You're approaching grade level, 1 year behind, and we see, for instance, at Bug, we see fewer students in Tier 2 because those students have moved up into Tier 1. Where at Castro, we see more students in Tier 2, and that's not a bad thing. That's because they've come out of Tier 3, and they've made enough growth then to get to Tier 2, and hopefully by the end of the year, they'll be up to Tier 1. So in addition to looking at those tiers, we also want to see improved placement, because we know that a student who's in 6th grade and is at Tier 3 may be scoring 3 or 4 years below grade level, but we want to know that they're making progress. And so this tells us that almost half of the students in our school district have made at least a year's growth already. They may still be in Tier 3, but they may have made 1 or 2 years worth of growth already. And our students who are at Tier 1, who are already at grade level, still deserve to grow and may have made that growth as well. But it's not enough just to stop there and look at the number of students who have made growth. We also want to know where everybody else is at. And so we can see school by school the percentage of students who have made at least 1 year's growth, the number of students who have stayed flat, meaning they're in the same place they were in Diagnostic 1, or the few students who have actually regressed and gone backward a level. And I'm going to take you through the same charts in math. The story looks very similar. This time our highest scores are in 5th grade math, which is fantastic to see that growth coming there. Again, our scores vary quite a bit from school to school. But again, I want to highlight the successes we see with every school making progress with the number of students in Tier 1, with the fluctuation in Tier 2 as a result of our children moving up from Tier 3 and into Tier 1, and also looking at every school decreasing the number of students who are performing in Tier 3. So this is great news. In math, our improved placement, we see that over 40% of our students have already made that year's growth. And again, we have a year's growth. We have a large number of students who are kind of stuck in the middle right now, and a few students who have fallen behind a little bit and gone backward. So really what we want to do now is consider deeply this data and dig in. From our perspective here, we're looking at a very large district over a wide view, but our principals and our teachers are looking student by student at everyone. So again, really happy to see the gains for all sites in reading and math and the number of kids at Tier 1 and the reduction for all sites in Tier 3. Really looking at the great news of 49% of students moving up an entire performance level in reading and 43 already moving up that full level in math. And then really those students who are still flat or have regressed, that's where the big work is. And so our principals went through a process during December's leadership team meeting, and they really dove into their data, reviewed all of their student data, focused on the instructional practices that are working really well, and maybe some that need to be adjusted. They really talked about having crucial conversations with teachers, with students, with parents about the data and where we go next from there. And had plans to communicate their data with their community as well, to keep everybody up to date on progress of all of their students. In addition to that great leadership team meeting we had, cabinet members we're having our cabinet meetings at school sites, visiting classrooms, really observing instruction and providing feedback to principals and helping the progress along the way in that area too. So next steps for us with our iReady, the diagnostic growth reports that show where a student scored at the beginning of the year compared to where they scored now will be sent home to all of our students and families on Monday, along with the Common Core Standard Performance Report. And what that will give is a detailed report of all of the grade level standards and how students have done on each one of those. That will help parents to know how they can support children at home with the standards that they need to work on a little bit more, or the ones that they've already mastered. Knowing that our math scores have a little bit more room to grow, professional development is continuing through February for Castro and Mauna Loma. Really excited to have our coordinators from the county coming out and training teachers. And our middle school teachers, our math teachers, are also continuing their work with Kirsten Sarginger from the county this month and really looking at their data, utilizing their data to plan their instruction moving forward for the remainder of the year. Our December coaches meeting really focused on differentiation and rigor in math, really aligning that work and the data that we've looked at. And our January coaches meeting is really going to focus on this data and instructional change and how our coaches can really work with teachers to support them with all of their needs and instructional change for students. We will continue to monitor instruction throughout the year, both in core classrooms and in our RTI, to make sure that all students continue to make growth. And we will be sharing final growth data with you at the end of the year. And we're looking forward to seeing more and more children continuing that climb into Tier 1 along the way.
Thank you, Ms. Figueroa. Other questions from the trustees? Trustee Gutierrez?
So I have a question. Thank you for sharing the report. Thank you for investing in our students and giving us this information. Secondly, though, I'm concerned about the regression that I've seen or that we've seen in Crittenden and Graham, double digits. Now, does this factor in grade level? Do we know what the issues are within the grade level, or is it a general just assumption based on the school as a whole? And what are we doing to try and target those in need to help them come up?
So great questions, and this is the reason that we've had these great data dives with principals, and they are taking their teams through that as we speak. I know Ms. Gomez is not here at the moment, but I know her next staff meeting, she has planned to go through all of that information with her teachers and dig into the students and really determine what happened, what do they need, what do we need to provide to them, and it gives us a whole different level of data to look at and understand student need so that we don't see any more of the regression, but we really can push students forward.
Sure. And if you could provide, I know it's extra work, but if you could provide the actual update and the answers to the questions I posed to the board and to the community, that'd be great. That way we can figure it out along the way. But the reason why I asked that is because I also know that we've got a different classroom now. We have all students in our classrooms, right? We've got special ed and on, and I want to see how and if our special ed students need further help and how that looks like. I think last year I had asked and the board had agreed that we wanted to see a presentation on where special ed lies. I don't know that we have a feedback in terms of when that's going to be presented to us, but if you can also give that to us as soon as possible and at least give us a date as to when to expect that, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, you were talking about the county coming in to help the middle school teachers. I have a question about articulation into high school. So in the past, you've told us about our 8th grade math teachers working with their 9th grade math teachers and also working with Los Altos, trying to get all the districts on the same page. What's going on with that effort?
So that effort still continues. Our math coach at the middle school continues to work regularly with the high school and make sure that we still have that articulation and alignment. We also have worked very closely with the high school and Los Altos to have similar cut points for our classes. And we've done quite a bit of work with them in that area too, so that we're bringing our students in at a very similar level and providing similar instruction for them.
I had a question just about the iReady tool and the lessons. It certainly makes the data easy to present, and it sounds like, well, the results are good in general. Are you and the staff finding this to be a helpful tool? And the second part of my question would be the lesson piece of it, as opposed to just the measurement. Like, are you finding that to be helpful, or does that have any impact on this? I assume that the bulk of the results is because of the teaching that the students are getting in the classroom, but just curious about the tool use.
Mm-hmm. I think the tool is very helpful, and it's helped us look at data in a number of different ways. And it's really helped us to see where our students are, not just at grade level, but above and below, to target the instruction more specifically. I think that definitely the lessons are very helpful to children and are very pinpointed and targeted at their gaps to fill. I think the other piece of it that's so valuable and powerful is that it's not just about the online program. Our teachers are supporting students with those online lessons too, and they're pulling small groups and giving small group instruction on those same target skills and needs. And I think that is the combination that provides the best resources for our children to help them grow.
So overall, the people continue to be positive and enthusiastic about it. Great. Well, I'm happy to hear that. Thank you.
Yes, I'm really excited to see that we are implementing this district-wide. I view the first benchmark as sort of, even the first year, we're really laying the groundwork here, right? We're learning how this works. Teachers are getting comfortable with it. Our district staff is getting comfortable with it. Our principals, and students are getting comfortable with the testing. And so there is a little bit of a bump that I've seen happen in other instances where the very first time something like this rolls out in a school, the test at the beginning of the year may be a little bit lower than normal because it's the first time kids have had that interface. At some of our schools, I think Landals was already using iReady for years. So I'm kind of curious, do you feel like, well, I shouldn't ask about feelings. Do we think that no, I'm going to reframe this. I'm curious when you come back with the second benchmark results to see not only the growth kids have made over the course of the whole year so far, but to compare the changes between the first benchmark and the second benchmark, because by the second time, they will have already had, well, no, this is the first benchmark test. They had a diagnostic at the beginning of the year. Do we call the diagnostic the benchmark then? Okay. So the third benchmark, I want to compare the diagnostic to this test, which we've got now, and then to the next benchmark that rolls through, because I'm more interested in kind of what happens moving forward. How should parents communicate with teachers around the results that they're going to get and find out the best ways to support their students?
I think that it is critically important that parents be able to ask questions of the teachers, talk about the results that they see. If they have questions about the growth that their child has made or not, I think this is the really important conversation. Here's my students' data. Here are the standards with which they have not yet mastered. What can I do to help at home to improve these skills? And if I have internet access, great. I'm going to help my child on iReady and continue that. And if I want to do something different, what else do I have available to me? And I think those are great questions that parents can ask teachers to get some resources, tools, and support.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I'm really excited to see the third benchmark. I didn't realize it was called a diagnostic on the first time, so I apologize for that. But I'm going to be really curious to see how we do in math. I see some growth, but I'm a little concerned. I'm not sure if it's that we're maybe not focusing as a board so much on math. I know we've been focusing on STEM and science, but I really am hoping that this goes up, and if not, that we as a board come up with ways or perhaps goals to target support for this that could potentially be wrapped up into the next generation science standards or into the RTI program at some point. So just some thoughts that I was mulling over when looking at this. Mm-hmm. This is really helpful as a parent. I'm loving this. My son will come home and it's just more continuous feedback and just knowledge of where he's at, and again where I as a parent can support him. So I mean I'm assuming I'm not the only parent who might feel that way, but it's on that side of things it's been really great to have. So I'm glad it's working out on your end because it's a wholesale change. But I appreciate the presentation.
Madam President, so on that front, in terms of the in terms of the math, last year in one of the meetings when Dr. Rudolph had presented along with the DO team to the board their analysis of our board one goal, we had also asked him and his team to be able to do that same style of analysis with math, especially at the middle school level, so that we can try and figure out what's happening, right? And then take it to the next level to find out what else can be done and in a more targeted approach. So I know that takes some time, and I don't expect Dr. Rudolph to have that within weeks, but I'm sure during this year we'll get an update hopefully on that as well.
I'm just a little bit perplexed as to why you're focusing on math, because I'm looking at the reading, and at least tier 1 and tier 2, 88% of the kids, 84% of the kids are at tier 1 and tier 2. It's a little bit more tier 1, 61%. The math, it's more. The math was 88% of the kids that are at tier 1 and tier 2. The tier 1 is a little bit lower. It's 57%, so I guess 4% different. But to me, I'm not seeing a big distinction. I think we should keep going on all fronts, but I'm just curious
I'm just looking across the school sites on that slide. It's a very, very different view. I mean, Huff, you'll have 76%. And is this tier one in green? And then some sites are 14%.
Okay, so
And so sometimes
okay.
the overarching picture masks some of the more finer detail in here. And I think even, like, it's hard not having them next to each other, but I even think that the ones in red are larger where there are these disparities when it comes to math versus the slide for English, but I'll have to scroll back here to verify that statement. No, not so much in the latter grades, but
Yeah. Okay.
I just overall some of the percents are 50. On average, they're 51 and above in reading to 78, and the lowest is 21, which is Castro. Compared to math across sites, I saw where's the math?
There's more outliers.
There's a lot more just there's just a lot more variability, and I think and I don't want to prescribe the solution, but like that RTI type of an approach could help. I mean, an additional structure, but again, this is not my decision. That's the house.
Right.
That's
so it's
just what
maybe that
illuminated it for me.
it's the outlier, the more variability as opposed to okay.
Well,
That's
you
what
can support the kids who need help, and then even help the ones who are already at advanced to even go higher. Because I know our parents are very concerned when they transfer into the high school level, and a lot of them do additional math support at the middle schools. So I might be the only one who saw that. So
Well, that's why I asked, and so it sounds like it's more the outlier piece,
yeah,
as opposed to the overall.
overarching. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
But that's why I
Thank you
followed
for
up on that.
clarifying
that. Thanks.
But that's why we followed up on that question, because you have to look at it not just from this vantage point, but also from, are we really doing enough to address the problems at each site and then in the larger
Across the tiers. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why I like the revamped approach to board one. So if we can get that back from the DO and Dr. Rudolph's assessment to how that was with math,
Right.
that's a great step.
Okay.
But I do really like the way that this allows us to pinpoint individual kids and individual skills. So that
Absolutely.
certainly seems like it will be helpful in the longer term.
Something that I would love to see in future presentations, but I don't know if it's possible with this tool. Dr. Rudolph looks over here very weary.
We actually were just talking about the presentation. It was something we can add. So.
Something that I would like to see in the future. So I loved the breakdown that we had by specific skills, and I think the presentation we had at the beginning of the year, there were many more slides. You don't necessarily, they could be in a report rather than slides, so you didn't have to go through them all, but we would have the chance to view them. But a breakout by English learners, SED, special ed, those data sets that we're used to seeing with the benchmark as well, because that helps us kind of, I think what is coming forward right now is that when people see a discrepancy and see that, for example, maybe Castro is performing lower, the concern is it mostly our Spanish speaking or English language learning speaking students or English language learners or SED students who are falling behind? And if so, what do we do? So that's where, if we can generate a little bit more detail in the data, I think that informs us better as a board.
Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on this item at this time? Additional comments from the board? All right. Thank you, Ms. Victor. And we'll move on to Board Goal 3, our STEAM plan update.
Which is me again. I just get to stay right here and keep on going. So STEAM update, I'm really excited to be here to share this with you. Alignment to Strategic Plan Goal 1 and Board Goal 3, which is really the clear focus on science standards, STEM and RTI model in our district. So I'm going to give a little bit of background. If you'll remember back in 2016-17, we piloted RTI programs within our district, and we had 4 schools that chose to pilot a literacy model, and BUB chose to pilot a STEAM approach to their RTI model. In 17-18 and 18-19, all of our elementary sites joined in with RTI. They all had an RTI model. Most of them continued the literacy model, but Bub, Huff, and Stevenson all went with the science approach. Now this year, all of our elementary sites are using that STEAM model for RTI. And what that model really looks like is the classroom teacher utilizes academic data to group students. And I'm going to give you a for instance. Group A might go to STEAM on Monday and Wednesday. Group B stays with the teacher for intervention on Monday and Wednesday. Then Group B is going to go to STEAM on Tuesday and Friday, while Group A stays with the classroom teacher for enrichment. And then they regroup every 3 to 6 weeks based on the data and the new information that they're doing. So the classroom teachers are really focusing on grade level standards, core content, intervention and enrichment, while our students are all getting hands-on, high-quality NGSS lessons in the STEAM classroom. And then classroom teachers are able to integrate some of those ideas from science within their core literacy classrooms to provide a really well-rounded experience for our kids every week. So over the summer, in June, July of 2019, a group of our STEAM teachers and principals came together and we developed a scope and sequence. Really, this new model gave us the ability to readjust the scope and sequence and have everyone in alignment teaching the same standards and the same skills all the way through the year instead of having to rotate and shift any of our science materials. So this allowed everyone K-5 to focus on physical science in trimester 1, earth science now in trimester 2, and finish up the year with life science in trimester 3. And once we had that scope and sequence, lesson plans were really developed, focusing on our adopted FOSS materials, but then adding in some really high quality anchor phenomena, adding in some really nice resources and supports for all of those lessons, starting with the work that Bub had done 3 years ago and continuing to add to that. And our STEAM team works together very collaboratively every month and are constantly adding resources to that document that's been shared with all teachers within the district. The STEAM team made a list of agreements about things that they would really focus on. The first being that all science lessons would be anchored in phenomena. We really need students to be engaged and interested and curious about science. And so all of our lessons have that anchor phenomena aspect to them. And that lessons would really focus on the 5E model. And I'm not going to go too much into depth in this, but just understand that the E's are really about engaging and exploring and really talking about science and thinking like a scientist, to really have great enriching discussions about what they're seeing and what they're learning. And that all of these lessons and all of the activities that they're doing would be captured in science notebooks. We really want children to be able to think like scientists and engage like scientists. And so they're capturing everything and coming back to all of these great notes and drawings and work that they've been doing all year long to really think about the world around them. Another agreement, lessons really are going to focus on all the aspects of STEAM. So science, of course, is at the heart of every lesson, but technology is very much integrated into all of the lessons that they're doing. Engineering practices are woven throughout. They're not just like something you do at the end. Students are really engaging in those engineering practices regularly. Art is woven in through projects and also through the sketches that they're doing in their science notebooks daily. And then math is embedded in the data analysis and scientific discovery of the activities that they're working on. We have the benefit of having a lot of extra STEAM resources. So Discovery Education provides us with the Discovery Experience and STEM Connect. These are online features that provide lesson plans, provide professional learning, and really provide some high quality videos and images. We can take children on detailed adventures and field trips virtually to help really engage in science and other curricular areas as well. And then thanks to the Mountain View Education Foundation, they've been super generous with the donations to support professional development, which is highly necessary in rolling out a new STEM or STEAM plan, and money for each of the classrooms to really be able to build up their STEAM program. And I want to talk a little bit about that professional learning. So we know it's really important that all members of our community, our school community, have some professional learning in STEAM. Pardon me. And so our administrators started with their professional learning in August. Sciences Elementary came and did an overview of NGSS and really focused on how to integrate those concepts of NGSS into the literacy classroom. Then our principals were also able to have professional learning from Discovery Education, who took them a little bit deeper into the shifts of NGSS, hands-on investigations, and the three-dimensional learning. And I know someone had a question, so I'm going to explain this a little bit. Disciplinary core ideas are really the standards. They're the things that we want children to know in science, along with cross-cutting concepts. And these are things that go over all of the domains of science and have commonalities such as cause and effect or patterns, the things that we'll see throughout all the domains of science and other concepts and standards and courses as well. And then we have the science and engineering practices. And these are really the things that we want kids to know to help them think like scientists. Like, how do we ask and answer really good, high quality questions? How do we evaluate our data? How do we create, I'm at a loss for the word, but how do we create models and evaluate them to understand what we're trying to learn? And so those are the 3 Ds of NGSS learning, are those 3 main components. And so our principals had the opportunity to go through some training about that. And then they're also receiving 5 days of job-embedded coaching from Discovery Education. We have a presenter who comes out and meets with them, walks through classrooms, and talks about the activities that are happening within those classrooms. And then our STEAM teachers have also been able to have some really good hands-on learning from Discovery Education. They have completed 2 full days of training and have a third coming up next month, really focusing on the deep dive into NGSS and what that really looks like and how to really dig in to that 3-dimensional learning with kids so that they're experiencing a wide range of interesting activities. They also have job-embedded coaching. The Discovery coach comes out and models lessons, helps them plan, and she has been out quite a bit with them already. In addition to the Discovery work, we also have our monthly STEAM meetings. Ronan Bhattacharya, whose son presented earlier, really has been helping to guide our elementary teachers through STEAM as well. And he's done a great job of helping them look at storylines and anchor phenomena and really dig into those science and engineering practices to make great lessons for children. And then our classroom teachers can't be left out. While they're not teaching science, they need to know what's happening with their children in the science classroom. So they also were able to go through in August an overview of NGSS and really talk about the integration of those science concepts into their core literacy. They also have 6 grade level collaboration days with Sciences Elementary. The coaches come in and meet with them and talk about what are these concepts that are happening in science now, and how can we use those cross-cutting concepts in science and really make that correlation to what's happening in literacy so that science isn't its own thing, but we can see how all of those skills intercept and cross. And so they might be writing about science, they might be talking about the vocabulary of science, or they might really be comparing how cause and effect works in the story I just read and how cause and effect worked in that science lab I just did. So currently, all of our students in elementary school are receiving science education in STEAM twice a week. They've completed all of our students' physical science and are in the middle of earth science right now. Really fun to see. Classroom teachers have participated in half of their collaboration meetings with that integration component with Sciences Elementary. And our STEAM teachers have completed 2 of their 3 days of professional learning and 2 rounds of their coaching from our Discovery Education coach. Our principals also have completed 2 days of professional learning and have had 2 coaching sessions. So we've had lots of great things happening. And that's what leads to great things happening for children, right? And in our pictures here, you can see we have second graders who are really building a mind map to understand how science works. We have fourth graders who are actually presenting a model for phenomena, which is really kind of neat, and they're evaluating each other's models. Here we have second graders who are using their journals to really write about what they've learned within their science class. And we have first graders who are using tools to evaluate with a rubric some of the engineering projects that they're doing. So a lot of hands-on things are happening for our children. And then here's an example of one of the integration pieces. Teachers in the classroom were teaching about informative writing. So what better to write about than mercury that you just learned about in science class, right? Another component of STEAM, of course, is technology. We have two of our schools, Castro and Therakoff, who are involved in the TechSmart pilot right now. Their students are using block coding to make computers follow directions. It's really kind of cool to watch their students really engage in that coding. And that's going to help them transition to the middle school, also using TechSmart, where they're using Python to design and develop online activities with that transition of coding. And so our teachers at those four schools completed 10 days of training over the summer and for our middle schools throughout December as well. We're now in the middle of a science adoption committee, which is really exciting too. So we have a really nice group of teachers and parents and administrators who have come together. And it's been fun to have our elementary STEAM team meet with our middle school science team as well, and really talk about what is it in the framework, what is it about NGSS that we really value most. And they really came up with some critical components that they cannot live without in a program. And so we have a rubric that we've been using to evaluate programs, but we've really highlighted what are those priority aspects of the rubric to help us do a better job of evaluating the different programs. And so really they wanted to focus on, number one, the presence and accuracy of high quality phenomena. K-8, everybody was really, really engaged in that aspect. They really wanted to engage in that three-dimensional learning and make sure that the program was set up for all of that. They wanted to make sure that it had a good sequence for the learning that would be effective for students. And hands-on was probably tied for first place with phenomena. We really need our instructional program to be hands-on and give children that really good high-quality education. And then, of course, we need support for our differentiated needs of our students. The one thing that is not here that the committee felt really strongly about too was that it should be a K-8, so we have continuity of the program all the way through. And so after evaluating for 3 days at the county, we have brought it back to 2 programs that we're going to begin piloting at the end of this month, and hope to come to you with a great recommendation in the near future. So next steps for us in STEAM will be to continue the professional learning and coaching for our teachers and administrators, continue integrating those science concepts in the core classroom, pilot, recommend, and adopt new curriculum. And once we do that, then we'll train our teachers next year and we'll redevelop our pacing guides and all of those extra supports. And then we also want to review the TechSmart pilot and determine our next steps with TechSmart as well. So I actually have spoken at you for quite a while, but I would love to show you what STEAM looks like. So if we can get this video up, I want to just give you a few minutes to see STEAM in action.
It starts and
I've been working my knee sore. I've been searching for the curtain you can't draw. I've been able to enable my way forward. I've been waiting for my baby, but no more.
What happens when rocks rub together?
they make sand and dust
Interesting. How?
because they rub together.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that? Like make it, like add details to that. So you said that they break and they make sand and dust. And how do they do that?
By rubbing together
And where would that happen in nature?
at mountains, rivers.
Interesting.
I've been working my knee sore. I've been searching for the curtain you can't draw. I've been able to enable my way forward. I've been waiting for my baby, but no more. 'Cause you love summer. How do you do? Tell me, I wonder. Show me how to.
Hi, I'm Valentina. At the beginning of this unit, we started studying about the midnight sun. Later on, we did some other projects that we didn't think were related, but when we put all the information together, we found out that it was related and it helped us find out more about the midnight sun that we never knew.
Hi, my name is Kate, and today I'm going to talk about what we learned in almost like the middle of our unit. We were learning about day and night questions, like how, for example, the sun rises and sets, and so does the stars and the moon. The Earth always spins towards the east, making the illusion of the Earth, of the sun, moon, stars, wherever there is, go tilt or like slide over the sky. But with the sun, it's kind of different at the top of the Earth since it's at a tilt. At a certain area, the sun would look like it's going all the way around, like a circle around the sky.
Hi, I'm Yasmin, and we learned that the Earth has to be at a certain tilt, and the midnight sun only occurs on the north and the south pole. So when the Earth is at the certain tilt, it appears that the sun is always on the middle of the sky, and it's for 24 hours. We also learned that the sun always rises in the east and sets in the west, except for on Australia, it always sets in the west, rises in the west and sets in the east.
So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I think the beauty of that is watching the kids do all of those hands-on experiences and experiments and then talk about the science that they're learning. And the other piece of the beauty of that is, I don't know if you noticed, but throughout the district, students were all kind of on the same page, having the same experiences with science in an enriching and engaging way.
Thank you, Ms. Vicky. Are there questions from the trustees? Trustee Gutierrez, your hand flew up first. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm inquisitive today. So, bear with me. Anytime I hear the word pilot, I gotta ask. Are we gonna go through a pilot process?
This is the state approved process for textbook adoption. So these are both formal textbook adoption. So it is not subject to the original the piloting process that we talked about a couple years ago.
And I wanted that for the record. So thank you very much. I'm
No,
done with
no
that, and
worries.
I'm happy. Okay.
I just have a question. When I read the presentation, earlier, it didn't phenomena made sense to me. But then as you were talking about that phenomena are really important, and that was a core concept. What do you mean when you say phenomena in that context?
So for our teachers and our students, it is really about something in the world, in nature that they can see that brings up a large number of questions that they can investigate. Something that doesn't have a simple answer. Here, I'll give you a for instance. A couple of years ago, we had some weird weather things happening, and Niagara Falls literally froze. That is not something that happens very often. But when you show a picture of that to children, they go, whoa, I wonder what made that happen. And that is a beautiful segue into many different aspects of science that can help children have a reason for wanting to learn and make some informed decisions about what's happening in the world.
Thank you.
Other questions from trustees? I have just a question. How much longer does the TechSmart grant go? Does it just through the end of this current school year?
That's correct.
And then at that time, will we be evaluating whether it's something that we are going to find additional funding resources for? Or?
So I know in speaking with MVEF, one of the things they want to know and gather some feedback on is whether or not people found it valuable, because it is a grant. If if that is the case, that people think it's worthwhile, then there's some questions that need to be had. Do we reapply for the grant, and do we expand it to more schools across the board? And so those are some of the preliminary questions we had earlier this week in our meeting. And so we need to do some research. The challenge is you can't necessarily quantify results for it, but what we do know, just some tangential evidence, and I know when we were at Stevenson, we got some good feedback from a parent who had a kid who's studying Python, and then I know when we went to Theracop, but I can't remember if we were at Castro and did a tour. If I've been at Castro yet. Not yet. Okay, so at least when we were at Theracop and we went into a STEAM classroom, there was a lot of excitement about it too. We've been over to Castro and have seen excitement there. Kids said they like it. Some of the kids said they like it better than the science class. So I think there's a strong possibility to continue it. It's just a matter of finding out sort of what the board's desire is, and then also what the funding capacity is, and how much would it cost if to either keep it at those schools or expand it.
Can you remind me, is it just at those 3 schools that you mentioned, or is it?
It's at 4 schools, so both of the middle schools, as well as Theracop and Castro, were the two schools that volunteered.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Rudolph, I'm so sorry. This goes back to what was presented before with iReady. There's internet connection options too for doing work at home. And for those parents that don't have access to the internet for whatever reason, do we still have a program for them to be able to get that for free? Or is that something that they approach the principal for help with? Or what's the situation there?
So I know, and in fact, we were talking about this today at our superintendent's coffee. Ms. Straw has given out over, was it 100? At least 100 Chromebooks and laptops refurbished, and we've had our facilitator help parents apply for Comcast $10 internet access. So yeah, I think the free version of that program may have disappeared now, and it's now down to this one. But we do try to. One of the things we have to remember, we don't push as many Chromebooks out anymore because we give them to every middle schooler, and so that's also helped to add a lot of access to it. But the staffs do a great job of trying to make sure that parents have access. Yeah, I don't know if Montaloma did.
Free Wi-Fi.
Yeah. And I can at least say I think the city has expanded their capacity because I've noticed at a couple more sites, my phone is at least picking up the city's Wi-Fi, which it didn't. Normally, it's only when I'm at City Hall, and I've picked it up in or the library. I picked it up a couple other places too.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who'd like to address the board at this time on this item? Okay, seeing as there are none, additional comments, trustees? Trustee Conley?
I do have comments. So I'm really excited to see this year. I am looking forward to making sure we continue to support our STEAM teachers because these were our literacy specialists who are now our STEAM specialists. And so I look forward to hearing more updates on how we're training them and supporting them in these new roles. And I'm curious, I would like to make sure that we retain these high quality teachers. And so we do that by making sure they're supported in what they're doing now. I had the opportunity to go on a walkthrough today at Miss Strahl, and it was really inspiring to see in a classroom. It was a fourth grade classroom. They were doing a literacy lesson, but when we talk about these cross-cutting and kind of combining, they were reading about Greta Thunberg, and they were talking about the climate crisis. And so, those things really engage students, and that's incredibly powerful. And to have an example of it, a child who's an activist was exciting. I am also looking forward to the science curriculum adoption. FOSS is great. It's not really like a meaty, in-depth curriculum, and so I think next year is, I think this is going to take off a lot more next year when we have a new curriculum on hand and a lot more meat to it than we've got right now.
I was just going to say, I am looking forward to the curriculum, and I'm glad we're there. I'm remembering back a year ago when we were sitting in the Graham Auditorium, and the kids that were graduating out of the district, the science curricula was written the year they were born. And, it just seems like we've made a whole lot of progress. And so I just want to note that and say I'm looking forward to even more. Thank you.
Thank you, trustees. Any more comments on this? Okay, thanks again, Ms. Victor. All right, we will move on now to board updates. Trustee Wheeler?
Aside from the comments that I send in to Ms. Lilga, I would like to describe in public something that I sent to the trustees, and I don't know if everyone had an opportunity to examine this real closely. And the reason I want to say this in public is so that if anybody's watching, they can be aware of this information as well. So I attended a workshop a couple of weeks ago at the Santa Clara County Office of Education, put on by two attorneys from a law firm about the changes in the charter school law. And it was an extensive presentation, very, very good. But the segment of that I and a lot of people were most interested in was the description of how is AB 1505 going to actually be implemented. And so if you recall, 1505 was the section where it said it added a new cause for finding for denial of a charter, including consideration of fiscal impact. So digging deeper into fiscal impact, and this is the component that a lot of people are interested in. The kind of headline for this is basic aid districts that are by necessity more wealthy districts than other districts in the state. They're not going to be able to use this fiscal impact language at all. And what the state interpreted this language to mean, and I'm going to read this. It says, school district satisfies this paragraph if it has qualified interim certification, certifying that approving the charter school would, one, result in the school district having a negative interim certification, or a negative interim superintendent pursuant to another statute, or is under state receivership. And in plainer language, it's we are all required to have a 3% reserve, or maybe even a 6% reserve. This is describing the school districts that can't demonstrate within the next 3 years that they're going to be above 3%. So that's what this statute means regarding fiscal impact. So it's not that a district like ours, or a district like a lot of districts around, that it would make a difference financially to our district, because charter schools will make a difference financially in everybody's district. But this is specifically what that language means. So it's it can be disappointing to learn that this is the interpretation of what this language was, because there was a lot of hope by a lot of us that this assembly bill was going to make a meaningful impact on districts like ours, and the answer is no.
Thank you for that update, Trustee Wheeler. Trustee Gutierrez?
I have no update.
But you just saw your mic go on. I'm like, okay.
Well, I mean,
Just
after
testing,
that
1, 2.
sour news from Alan on the.
Any other trustees? Okay, if you do have any, please email them to Ms. Lilka. And we have items for future board agendas. I believe I heard Trustee Gutierrez earlier say he'd like to hear a special education update. Is that correct?
Well, they had
We
agreed
had
to
said
it.
that. We had agreed to that a couple meetings ago.
Okay,
So
so
that was
we'll
just
reiterate that needs to come up on a future agenda in the minutes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ellen.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other future agenda items? Okay. We've got the future board meeting dates, and I believe, do we list the retreats on these or no? We do. 29th, right? Got it. Okay.
29th of February.
The February 29th, our board retreat will be held on Saturday, I believe, from 9 to 1. If I'm correct. So those are there, and it looks like at 8:48, we will adjourn the meeting of the Mountain View School District. Is that a record?